Today, we're diving into the story of a baseball team that was somehow both a slapstick comedy act and a championship dynasty. It's a wild story about a group that mixed incredible showmanship with just raw athletic talent, all as a way to survive. And believe me, they didn't just survive, they changed the game forever. So let me just start with a question for you. Think about two absolute giants of baseball history. Hank Aaron, one of the greatest home run hitters who ever lived, and Toni Stone, a trailblazer who just shattered gender barriers. On the surface, they seem like they're from completely different worlds, right? Well, get this. The one thing they had in common? They both wore the exact same uniform, the uniform of the Indianapolis Clowns. And that one fact, right there, just perfectly sets up the fascinating, kind of contradictory, and totally one-of-a-kind story of this legendary team. And this really gets to the heart of their whole identity. You have to ask, were they entertainers or were they elite athletes? And the answer, as we're about to see, is a loud and clear yes to both. I mean, just look at this. It lays out their incredible two-sided identity perfectly. On one side, you've got the show. This is what they were famous for, the comedy acts, performing in grass skirts and wigs, and perfecting these routines like shadow ball. Yeah, that's a pantomime game played with no ball at all. But then you flip it over and you see the game. This was a serious powerhouse team, a team that won 4 Negro American League championships, that discovered and launched Hank Aaron, and that broke all the rules by signing Toni Stone. So how in the world did a team like this even happen? Well, their journey started with a really unique and, frankly, brilliant business strategy that was born out of the harsh realities of a segregated America. Their evolution is a story all by itself. They kicked things off in the 1930s as the Miami Giants, but soon after they became the Ethiopian Clowns, a name that, is pretty controversial by today's standards, but it was part of this masterful promotional machine. This whole journey eventually got them into the Negro American League in '43, and finally they settled in as the Indianapolis Clowns in 1946. Their strategy was pretty simple, really. Be so entertaining that nobody could possibly ignore you. People often compared them to the Harlem Globetrotters for all their on-field antics. And it worked. They drew huge crowds, black and white fans, sitting together at a time of intense segregation. It made them a massive financial success. But not everyone was a fan of this style. A lot of people in the established Negro leagues thought their showmanship, which sometimes relied on pretty degrading stereotypes, was undermining the seriousness of the sport. It got so heated that in 1941, the leagues actually banned their teams from playing against the Clowns. This basically forced the team to prove they were much more than just an act. And prove it, they did. What came next was an era where the Clowns really shifted their focus. They went out and silenced every single critic with just undeniable, dominant success on the baseball field. Okay, so how dominant are we talking? Well, they won 4 Negro American League championships in just 5 years. Let that sink in for a second. From 1950 to 1954, they were the team to beat, period. This amazing streak wasn't some kind of fluke. It was a straight-up dynasty. It cemented their legacy and proved to absolutely everyone that underneath all the comedy and the showmanship was a core of pure championship-level baseball talent. But, their most important legacy might not have been the trophies. It was their gutsy willingness to break the unwritten rules of baseball, giving a shot to players who would go on to change the course of history. Case in point, in 1952, they took a chance on this unknown 18-year-old kid. He was a shortstop, batted cross-handed, which is a big no-no, and he was so skinny that most scouts just wrote him off. But the Clowns, they saw something special. And his name was Henry Hank Aaron. And it didn't take long for the rest of the world to notice. A local newspaper in 1952 was already comparing him to the legendary Ted Williams. The talent was just impossible to deny. After just 3 incredible months playing for the Clowns, the Boston Braves bought out his contract, and the price? $10,000. That was a huge amount of money at the time, and it just goes to show how valuable this young star became, and how fast. So let me ask you, how do you even begin to replace a once-in-a-generation talent like Hank Aaron? The Clowns owner, Sid Pollock, knew he needed another huge draw to keep people coming to the games. So he made a move that nobody in professional men's baseball had ever even considered before. He signed a woman. I'm not talking about a gimmick for one inning. He signed her as a full-time, regular player on the team. Her name was Toni Stone. Now, to really understand how historic this was, you have to get this. Toni Stone wasn't just on the roster. She was the first woman to ever play regularly and consistently in a top-tier men's professional league. She absolutely smashed one of the biggest barriers in all of sports. And let me tell you, she could play. In 1953, she took over second base, the exact position that Hank Aaron left behind. She played in about 50 games and hit a really solid .243. Oh, and the legend says she even got a hit off the one and only Satchel Paige. Toni Stone was the real deal. So when you put it all together, the comedy, the championships, the history-making players, you really start to see the team's ultimate legacy take shape. As baseball started to integrate, most of the other Negro League teams sadly folded, but not the Clowns. They survived. And why? Because their unique formula of serious, top-tier baseball mixed with irresistible entertainment kept the fans pouring in. By the mid-60s, they were literally the last team standing. And they kept playing for decades after that, finally disbanding in 1989. That incredible run makes them the longest-playing Black professional team in American history. Just a truly remarkable feat of survival and adaptation. In the end, the Indianapolis Clowns were so much more than just champions or entertainers. They were innovators. They proved that to survive, and especially to thrive against all the odds, you have to be willing to break all the rules and just create your own game. And that kind of leaves you wondering, what other stories of overlooked genius are still out there, just waiting to be told?